You have been leading this company now for 30 years. And I got to know, at one point, were you a boss instead of a leader?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, in the early days, for sure. Because I just couldn't get all the work done by myself. And so I needed help to get the work done. And so I got people, and I thought if I paid them that they would just like come and they would work and they would
Reasonable.
care. And then no, I started realizing in order to have a team, I had to learn how to do something other than just crack a whip.
So what did that process look like to move from boss to leader?
Well, I started reading and learning and studying the whole concept of leadership. Because, I mean, I'm old school dinosaur guy, and really, I mean, blue collar is you just clock in, you do your work, you go home and clock out, you clock out and go home, kind of thing. And so I knew that wasn't going to work, that we had to get people that were engaged and that were thinking on a higher plane rather than just working a job, because the quality of work, the quality of customer service provided, because this whole thing we're on in EntreLeadership and in Financial Peace University is all a crusade about changing people's lives, and that's not something you can just kind of clock in and clock out.
Yeah, it was much more missional. This is a crusade, and you have to find people who don't see it as, well, I'm just a manager. I'm just here to manage people.
Managers count stuff.
Yeah, how do you actually, on paper, go, here's the difference between a boss and a leader? And you do this at our EntreLeadership events, walking through what an entre leader is.
Well, bosses push, leaders pull. Bosses, in general, have things that they are demanding of. They've got a certain task, and so in a sense, when I'm bossing, I'm a taker. A leader is more of a servant, and pulling and inspiring, and giving people great dignity. And the bad news is that a boss can actually get more done today with the team than a leader can. But then the people don't stay engaged because most people don't want to be bossed. Hello. Very few people do, unless there's something wrong with them. And they don't want to be told what to do all the time. They don't want to be micromanaged. They don't want a sense of an iron fist over everything they're doing. And so it works short term. You can get, a little bit like parenting in that sense. You can make your children behave and they turn into little robots, but then they don't have any critical thinking skills to become adults.
So over time, the work landscape has changed. Back in the day, you could get away with being a boss. It just doesn't cut it anymore. As we're seeing Gen Z and millennials, they want to serve under leaders, and that's what's going to keep them at these companies. And you mentioned the word servant leadership. We talk about in the EntreLeadership book, it's redundant, that all leaders should be servants. At what point did you even hear about that term, and was there kind of this light bulb moment?
Yeah, I don't think that this generation is any different. We talk about millennials, demanding or needing this or whatever. No human being that has any self-esteem and self-confidence has ever wanted to be told everything to do. So that's not new. That's always been that way. But now the work culture, had a lot more bosses in it in the old days and fewer real leaders. But the real leaders in those days even stood out. The real leaders in a military culture where you have to, you have to follow orders. But even those situations, real leaders have that servant mentality. First time I heard it was I was reading John Maxwell. And John is a good friend, and he's in the Christian space primarily about leading in churches, but leading with a biblical mindset. And he said, great leaders are servants. And I thought to myself, not a chance. I sign their check. They're supposed to do what I tell them to do. I'm not serving them. They're serving me. But that's a boss mentality when I thought that. And so it doesn't work. But I also, when I heard servant come out of his mouth, I didn't hear servant. I heard subservient.
Big difference.
Like somehow I have to do everything. In your case, what you were talking about there, the millennials tell me to do. I don't have to do everything. I don't have to acquiesce to every little request from the folks that are on our team. That's ridiculous. So I'm not their subservient. I'm not bowing to them in that sense. But servant simply means, do I have their best interest at heart while we're doing this together? And sometimes I have someone's best interest at heart, I realized, when I let them not work here anymore because they suck at their job and they need to go find a job they don't suck at. And so that's serving someone. Sometimes I'm serving my children when I made them brush their teeth against their will so that they have teeth later. That's a good thing, So that's serving, but serving can be setting out real expectations, challenges, and holding people accountable to them. That's serving because people are growing into who they can be that way versus, I'm not going to allow anyone to coast around here. I don't coast and mail it in and half-butt do stuff. And so, but that's serving them to create a culture and environment of high productivity, high energy, high intellect. I mean, you're running with thoroughbreds when you're running at Ramsey. And so that's serving. It's serving people when we don't tolerate misbehavior inside the organization. That's serving. But, that's different than I have to do everything you tell me to do and I pay you. That's backwards.
So this is not, you're a doormat, you're not soft. There's still, it's just not militant. And so there's this weird space in between.
And so I have your best interest at heart. I actually can care about you and still hold you to high expectations. I did that with my children when they're growing up, but you can feel that I love you and that I care about your future and I care about your spouse and I care about your dreams. And simultaneously, the best way to get there is for us to go freaking win.
Yeah. So when someone gets promoted into leadership, sometimes what runs through their mind is, I'm going to get a new office. I'm going to get this pay bump. I'm going to upgrade my lifestyle. Those feel a little bit vain and frivolous. What should be going through someone's mind as they step into leadership for the first time?
Well, they feel vain and frivolous because they are. That's a vain and shallow mentality. Our good friend Pat Lencioni has a new book out called The Motive. And, it's a great read, by the way. You got to read it. But it's, again, one of those parable-type style books where he tells a story of a guy who had the wrong motive to be a leader. And when he changed his motives, he actually became a real leader. But your motive, again, is not what you can get. It's what you can give. And the paradox is that when you approach it from that, not only does the person in the organization get more done, is shinier, all those kinds of things, but you actually also at the end of the story end up more satisfied as a leader by serving and how you can knock blockers down for your team, get things done, help them, lift them up, hold them accountable, all the different things you have to do in the leadership seat that has nothing to do with the corner office or the pay or the, quote, privilege of being a leader. And so, we don't want anyone that's moving into leadership unless their goal is to make their team better, not I want a corner office.
Yeah, well, you've probably seen a lot of great leaders, and you've also dealt with some crappy ones. How do you draw the line of, hey, I'm going to sniff this guy out and see if he's got bad motives? How do you feel that out? How do you discern?
I don't know that you can in one technique or one formula or anything. It's just reps. If you just watch what they're doing, most people have a pretty good sniffer. You can sniff them out and they'll, over time, and it doesn't take 2 years, but, you're not going to be able to have one meeting with a person and go, that gal, she doesn't cut it, or that gal is a superstar. You're not going to find that out. But, check the fruit. What's happening? How's the team's attitude? I remember years ago we had a lady on our team that was a world-class leader, and really the thing that she did the best was she created an environment on that team that her team members were intensely loyal to her as well as to the mission that group was working on, and she was just naturally pastoral in how she went about her life, and it created these deep bonds with her team, and they would do anything for her as a result. And how she got that tremendous loyalty, she gave tremendous loyalty. So you can watch the fruit and go, I'm a fruit inspector. That's what's happening over there. This apple's rotten, or that tree's full. Look at that.
Versus someone who's raising their hand going, I want to be in leadership, but there's no fruit there. And you go, what's the real reason?
Yeah. Almost always someone who's jumping up and down, pick me, pick me, pick me, is not who you want. Because that tells you right there it's about them. It's about them. instead of, hey, how can I add value? How can I add? That's a John Maxwell phrase or a Ken Coleman phrase that we use around here all the time. How can I add value? Because every one of you guys out there, gals out there listening right now that run a company, if someone comes in and can add value, you're not going to keep them from adding value. And you're like, okay, I can show you how to do this, and that would be awesome that you did that. And all of a sudden, they are leading. You can watch around the company, around the culture, and there's people who are leading even if they don't have titles. They're following them in social engagements. They're joining their Bible study. They're they're on their softball team. Everybody wants to be on that guy's team. Everybody wants to be on that gal's team outside of work. And so you've got some people who are leading, but they've just never been given the job of leader.